for your practice. And yesterday was Vesak Day. This is a big Buddhist holiday in the South Asian countries in the great division of Buddhism called the Theravada, Thera. That means elders. Theravada, Vada, path of the elders. And it is a big Buddhist celebration that celebrates conveniently all three major events in the life of the historical Buddha Shakyamuni: his birth, his great enlightenment, and his death, which is also called the parinirvana or parinibbana. And so, of course, we are still in some stage of the global pandemic. If it were not pandemic time, then there would be many, many thousands of people congregating at various Buddhist temples in Thailand and Sri Lanka and countries of this tradition that celebrate Vesak, and just many joyful practices going on, and lots of chanting and probably lots of eating. And hopefully we will get back to that as we begin to emerge. And we know that around the world there are some places where the pandemic is still raging very, very fiercely. And we send our loving kindness as well as what material aid that we can offer. And learn, very important to learn about and be conscious without depressing ourselves, to learn about what's going on. So you're on mute, and I invite you, if you feel comfortable doing so, to just experimentally. This is not something that is going to, that you have to believe in. My Dharma talk this evening is based on a famous text revered by the Tibetan Buddhists and very widely known in the Buddhist world, sometimes called Shantideva's prayer. So I invite you, this is a translation into English. And it goes back to a teacher named Shantideva who lived in the 8th century in what is now India. So I just invite you to sort of forget about all that now. And if you like, if you feel comfortable, you might place your hands together, either like this, or touching your heart. A lot of people like to place their hands on their heart. So we're making contact with ourselves, right? And repeat after me. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the shore of non-suffering. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine. And may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. And just take a moment. We might like it, we might not like it. It's your experience. How does it feel to you to say, may I be a protector to those without protection? Remembering that also includes you. Protect yourself, please. What's your experience when you say, may the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away? So please know, I'm not trying to get you to produce anything. It might make you feel really irritated and angry. You might feel curious, but it's kind of like, have to think about it. You might have an experience of identification and resonance. It's your experience. And I think it's fair to say that this collection of verses from the very ancient longer text by Shantideva. So this particular group of verses, which I'll read in full in a little bit, is called Shantideva's Prayer informally. And I think it's fair to say that it is for many people what I'm going to call and what is called a heart teaching. And the topic of my talk tonight is BIPOC, or Black Indigenous People of Color, heart teachings and Shantideva's prayer. May I be the source of life. And I'm seeing in the chat from Walt, restatement of the Bodhisattva vow, question mark. Yes, exactly. The longer text from which this shorter text comes is called, in English, The Guide to the Way of the Bodhisattva. Very famous text. And the original title is the Bodhicharya-vatra, Bodhicharya-vatra, or the Bodhisattva Charyavatra, the guide to the way of the Bodhisattva. So in other words, it's like a how-to manual. If we want to be Bodhisattvas, yeah, we can learn to be protectors to those without protection. And once again, this includes ourselves. It's not about putting ourselves aside. It's learning to be bigger. Bodhisattvas like to go big. And the Bodhisattva vows and precepts are my vows and precepts. I received them in 1983 in Toronto, Canada, when I received the name that you see, Mushim. That's a Korean Zen Buddhist name. And it's not a gendered name. It's from a very famous text called the Heart Sutra. It's an intimidating name is what it is. You don't get to choose your own names in the usual tradition, and the teacher gives you your name. And so when I heard it called out in the ceremony, I thought, I'm in trouble here. It's a very big name for kind of a little person. I'm limited, and it means literally no heart mind, which doesn't mean that I'm necessarily a mean person all the time. I can be mean. It's a spiritual meaning. It's a Buddhist meaning, which I think it comes from the emptiness or Shunyata teachings, and it occurs again in this very important central text called the Heart Sutra. So that's my name, Mushim. And that's my practice, is to become Mushim. All spiritual names are like that in Buddhism. I remember once, what was it? I was with my teacher and we were doing a pilgrimage, and we drove through San Francisco. We drove up from Mexico in an unheated Volkswagen, and we were going around San Francisco. That was before the internet, so we looked for names in the yellow pages, and then we would just pop up and say hi. And because he was a monk and dressed in monk's robes, we would always be treated so well. Wonderful hospitality. And we went to a Vietnamese temple, which was in a townhouse, an old townhouse, I think on Dubose Street, maybe in San Francisco. And there were two young monks and a bunch of kids were there. They were totally cute. And they were eating instant noodles in the basement kitchen. and the young Vietnamese monks spoke some English, and we introduced ourselves. They were so nice, and one of them said, my Dharma name is Great Compassion. And then he laughed and he said, but I'm not there yet. So that's the nature of Dharma names. They set a bar. We're moving in that direction if all is going well. So hopefully at the moment of my death, I'll think I did the best I could to become worthy of the name Mushim. And ultimately, all the names are one name. So may I be the source of life. That's a quote from Shantideva's prayer. And it is one of the great heart teachings that I practice. What is a heart teaching? What heart teachings have been given to you that you've given to others? So for me, here's what a heart teaching is. It's something that stays with us all the time, and it just keeps illuminating our lives more and more and more and more. So it's very personal, in other words. It transcends religion or tradition. It could come from anyone or anything. You could get a heart, very possible. You could get a heart teaching from a bird or a tree. In the Buddhist point of view, you could get it from a piece of garbage. They're all parts of the world. And what makes it a heart teaching is that it is a very intimate transmission. It is a very intimate transmission. And we feel it go directly from one heart to another. So it's very powerful. It transforms our life and it keeps opening. That's how we know it is a heart teaching. We can receive a heart teaching from a teacher that we've never met, such as His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It doesn't necessarily mean we have to be with them in person. And it's not like they say, I will give you this special heart teaching and it's only for you. However, people who do receive these kinds of transmissions will say, hey, I was in a stadium full of thousands of people, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama was teaching, or someone was teaching, and I knew that this teacher was speaking directly to me. I could feel it. That's quite common. I'm a parent, as many of you know. It does not depend on fixed roles. As a parent, we can get heart teachings from our children, and hopefully our children and descendants can get heart teachings from us that can help sustain them through all of the suffering that human life brings. Therefore, the essence of these heart-to-heart transmissions are the essence of spiritual friendship, what's called Kalyana Mita or Kalyana Mitra, the great spiritual friend. And here is the essence of heart teachings, is that we can practice as much as possible being open to receiving the heart teaching anytime and anywhere. There are heart teachings that are available to us many, many times. The question is, are we open? Are we quiet enough to really hear them? As a Buddhist teacher, as a spiritual teacher, many people come to me, and usually they approach me and say, I have a question about my meditation practice. And I'm like, sure. The times I've been asked questions about meditation are very few and far between. Mostly what they end up asking is saying, I have this form of suffering in my life. What's your advice? So of course I say, I can't tell you how to live your life. Or if I feel it would be good to refer them to a psychotherapist, um, or just say you need to find a healer of your choice, I will do that. If I have something to say, I'll say this is just me. And because they have approached me as a teacher, that is when I become a teacher. If I'm not in the teacher-student relationship, if you approach me as a student, then I become teacher. If I'm in Trader Joe's, I'm a shopper. If my child is talking to me, I'm mom. If I go to Big O Tires to have my tire replaced, I'm a customer. Therefore, in our environment right now, there could be so many teachers who are waiting to give us, the wisdom that we so deeply desire. The question becomes, are we prepared? Are we in a state of readiness? Are we open? Can we hear? Again, people will say, what should I do, Mushim, about this or that? And often I'll say, well, okay, you're asking my advice. And I will tell them something that I know probably their best friend has told them if they talk to their best friend. But because they're not looking at their best friend as, oh, you are my teacher, they probably thought, oh, yeah, yep. And then when they come to someone who they think, gosh, I must listen to this. This is like a sacred thing. Then they might think, oh, these are indeed words of wisdom. So does that mean you should not listen to your teachers? No, please listen to your teachers. They're working hard. It and it also means listen to your best friends. Maybe even listen to people you don't like and yet you also respect their expertise. We might not necessarily even like our dentist or our oncologist. If they're doing their function well, they could really help us a lot. Are we open? Therefore, I'm talking about what's sometimes called heart-to-heart transmission. And I feel that happens within the spirit of Kalyana Mita. So that's spiritual friendship. And you notice that doesn't have hierarchy in it. There's a great equality there. There's a great equality there. Because why? Because the essence of it is intimacy. And intimacy means lack of fear. We're just not afraid. So I'm going to read the text of Shantideva's, what's called Shantideva's prayer. It will be put into the chat. And thank you very much for those of you who are visual people. I just urge you to, you can Google it too, urge you to just relax and listen. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader to those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage, for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life. May you also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. This is the favorite verse of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. For as long as space endures and for as long as living beings remain, until then, may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world. Until then, may I too abide. And as many of you know, It's part of Buddhist teachings that we are born many, many times, including in this lifetime. We've been probably reborn at least a couple times since we got up this morning. If we got up this morning, in that we've changed, we have changed, and some transitions are larger than others. So this is the vow of the Bodhisattva. Unfortunately, the vows I received is to just keep on coming back. It said until the last suffering blade of grass has been rowed over the sea of suffering to what's called the further shore, and that is Nibbana or Nirvana, the place of peace, where there is no oppression, there is no fear, there is no alienation and disconnection. That is the place of peace. I've been fortunate enough to receive a number of heart teachings, and I'll just briefly go over some of them, and then we can open it up because I would love to hear from some of you if you'd like. And I would urge us to, if we can, put it in the chat because that tends to, people condense it more, and then we can hear from more people. And Julio and Evan will perhaps be gracious enough to curate that and read some of those things aloud. And so just to say that this text, Shantideva's prayer, I first read in the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, a best-selling book that has gone through many editions and has been translated into many languages. It's often used in hospice work, and it was recommended to me by a bereavement counselor at Pathways Hospice in Oakland. And I went there for counseling after my father died in April of 1996. At that time, my mother was in the final stage of her battle, 5-year battle with large cell lymphoma cancer. So she was in the terminal stage of cancer. And this was a very hard time for our family. So I did go for counseling, and the counselor recommended this book. And I was reading through it, and I read this text. And the moment I read, "May I be a protector to those without protection," I knew that my life had changed. So since that time, if I'm called to be at the bedside of someone who is dying, if I am called to be to come to a place where someone has recently died, and the family and friends have said, "Would you please come and do a service for our loved one?" I will bring Shantideva's prayer, and if I forget to bring it, or I don't know, a dog eats it along the way, it's okay because I have it installed on the inside. I have it memorized, and it is in my heart. And I've had many deep experiences um, by bringing Shantideva's prayer into situations where, of course, I check with whoever's there and say, "Would this be okay? Would this be okay?" I'm also remembering our Sangha member. I don't know if some of you remember her. What a character. Longtime member of East Bay Meditation Center's People of Color Sangha and many classes, Oladuni Eagles, now one of our ancestors. So I pay homage to my friend Oladuni Eagles. And she asked to come see me in September, I think a few years ago. And she didn't tell me what it was about, but when she came, we sat in my kitchen, my little kitchen. She said that she had a brain tumor and it was her decision not to have it treated. She said, "Western medicine just does not work for me." And she was a very, very like strong, incredibly powerful professional person, much respected by her coworkers, and has a very loving son and much beloved in our community. So she was used to being all self-reliant and very proud. And of course, she was struggling with what would come. And So, and so she said to me, who will hold space for me when I can no longer hold space for myself? So that was her heart teaching. And I said, we will. We are your Sangha and we will hold space for you. So, two other brief heart teachings before we open this up. I'm going to ask to please screen share one of my favorite quotes from my spiritual friend, my late spiritual friend, Baba Ibrahim Farajaje, who was formerly provost of the Star King School for the Ministry. And the quote appears under the name Halvat Dar Anshuman. It's a Sufi phrase. That was his Facebook name. And he was a Sufi imam and queer Black radical activist and a teacher at the Star King School for the Ministry. This is what he said. Radically subversive religious leaders are willing to challenge paradigms, challenge structures of oppression, to encourage people to dream into reality new worlds. They put their bodies where their discourse is, and by so doing, they tap into the energy in the communities that's already moving. So see, here we have the importance of the community. It's the energy in the communities that's already moving. That's why we say movements, justice movements. So these religious leaders, we're not looking to them to say, hey, you have to give us all the momentum. We, the community, begin to move, and then our leaders tap into the energy. So what I mean is, Baba says, those who are really willing to build communities of resilience, of sustainability, that are counter-oppressive, and who engage in the work of connecting the dots constantly. And we might ask ourselves, what dots are we connecting? That's a good meditation question. And then I'll give you my heart teaching. If you could please show the slide. And I formulated this at the end of one of my cohorts of the year-long program, Secular Mindfulness for Social Justice Activists. I thought, I'm going to be sending this wonderful group of social justice activists out from this program. I'm going to boil it down. This is my heart teaching, how to meditate. Keep it simple. Take care of your body, particularly for those of us who are Black, Indigenous people of color. We know that our bodies have not been honored. We do not have the same access to medical care, particularly for Black and brown people in the United States. So take care of your body and honor it as it is right now. I invite you to say right now, body, I honor you. You brought me this far. Meditation practice is ordinary, seamless, and interwoven with daily life. You don't need special clothes and gear. Be open and quiet and fearless. Please don't allow meditation to be commodified. Why? It's a natural activity for human beings. Don't allow that water to be sold by the river. It's a natural activity. It is your birthright. It is your birthright. Relax. Open to what you can. Notice and observe with kindness. Try to be okay with confusion, ignorance, desire. They're all perfectly natural. Just watch them with kindness and clarity. Try to see and love yourself and others as you and they wish to be seen and loved. Thank you so much. And we do have time. If you like, if you have questions, please put them into the chat. And if you've received a heart teaching that you can condense and feel comfortable sharing in any way you like, of course, that would be a gift of generosity, of dana, to the wonderful people who are here in this BIPOC spiritual community. That's also the nature of a heart teaching. If you can, pass it on. And conditions have to be right. It is so wonderful. There's so much wisdom there. You know, years ago at East Bay Meditation Center, we originally had this tiny storefront in downtown Oakland on Broadway at 22nd. And I taught beginning mindfulness meditation there with my pal, EBMC teacher and co-founder Kitsi Shoen, who has been doing mindfulness meditation, which is in the Buddhist tradition called vipassana. That means clear seeing. Hence, it's also called insight meditation. It is a technique. And I remember we taught it and gave the basic instructions. And then Kitsi looked out inside she looked out at the students inside and said, easy to learn, hard to do. And never were truer words spoken, at least in my experience. So I would say to your very, very good question is, yeah, I think, and I invite you to practice that. What is something, if you have 30 minutes or an hour, what can I do in this time of my precious human life that will make my life better? That is doable, by the way, that is doable. And then do it. So why is it so hard? A couple of things. Many people have blocks against what they feel might be pleasurable. It's like, oh, I don't deserve this pleasure. Maybe I can make myself uncomfortable for the next 30 minutes. So that's conditioning. We need to look at that. And we can, through our practice, with great compassion, like, whoa, that's kind of weird. How can I loosen up around that? How can I loosen up around that? And say, I'm going to give myself permission to just be a little bit playful. I'm going to loosen up here. I'm going to loosen up here. Right before this, some of you were with me. I was on this fabulous fundraiser for Nomadic Press in Oakland, featuring the wonderful teacher Lama Rod Owens, who has taught here. And he was saying that during, I think it was when the pandemic hit, that he was feeling, well, yes, there's so much suffering, and I'm having a great time. I'm probably having the greatest time in my life due to 4 things. And they were things like friends, Netflix, something, and cocktails. So I would say pretty good practice in knowing what could bring about a state of actually contentment during a global pandemic. So what is it for you? That, of course, is a pertinent question. And then if you have blocks against doing it and it's doable and it's not destructive, that's something we can look into with our mindfulness. Like, why is resistance arising? What's keeping me back? What's keeping me back from doing this thing that will actually make my life better? I can't answer it for you. That's your meditation question. Really, really excellent observation. Thank you. You got it. Which is why, in my point of view, it's very good to cultivate a sense of humor. Not because we're laughing at anyone, haha. It's because humor provides us with the ability to be more spacious and to see a larger picture. When it's really functioning in a healthy way, it helps us to see a bigger picture. And I myself think there are many things in life that are actually so absurd. They're not funny like, oh, that's so amusing, because it's very serious, but it's more like Monty Python. I can't believe this shit. It's just absurd. Witness the political scene over the past few years. Yes, so they can be bitter medicine, and as adults, we know sometimes medicine tastes terrible, and then we get better. We feel better. Yes, yes, that is why it's called the miracle of mindfulness. Walt wisely says, so true. That's why those of us who've taken the Bodhisattva vows say, hey, this one lifetime is not enough. I'm going to keep coming back. I always say that it's like the Terminator. I'll be back. Very definitely. Very, very definitely. And that's why if we can develop the ability to be fully present with incredible compassion and openness to suffering and to pain. We're not courting it, by the way. I'm not saying to bring it deliberately into one's life. However, there's plenty in life. We know that as BIPOC for sure. If we can be open to it. And a question, when I went through a crisis, I really got mad at him actually. And heart teaching, bitter medicine, a friend of mine who is a wonderful Buddhist teacher in the Jodo Shinshu or Pure Land tradition, they don't meditate, their practice is gratitude, said to me, is there an opportunity for you here, Mushim? And I thought, I would like to punch you in the nose. I'm having a real hard time here, buddy. And he said, is there an opportunity here? And he was absolutely right. I've often thought of him. He moved up to Canada some years ago. Whoa, there were so many opportunities there. And with the help of the Sangha, I made it through. And my life is infinitely better. So as I said, readiness is all, openness and receptivity is all. And therefore, we practice what's called the paramita or parami. That's the spiritual quality of patience, of kshanti or kanti. We practice patience. And as I've said before, there is a wonderful book in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition on karma by a teacher named Traleg, Traleg Rinpoche. And he says, the paramita of patience is declaring we shall never be defeated. So no, if you wait long enough, you will be victorious and your heart teaching will be delivered and it will be received perfectly. Thank you so much. Yes, let's close because there's a whole ending chapter to the Bodhicharya, which is called the dedication of merit. How about that? And here are some verses in translation into English from the Guide to the Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva, the dedication of merit. So may all beings everywhere, plagued with sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of the goodness that this People of Color Sangha has generated by being in community here tonight. May the naked find clothing and the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find new hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting one another. As you leave this virtual space and travel to wherever you're going next, it may be your kitchen or to bed, may all travelers find happiness wherever you go, and without any effort, may you accomplish whatever you have set out to do. And finishing again with our favorite verse, for as long as space endures, and for as long as any living being remains, until then, may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world.